My name is Socorro Cori Moreland. I was born and raised in the Bay Area. My family is from Puerto Rico. And when I was conceived and when I was about to be born, my mother thought it wouldn't be a good idea for us to live on the island because there was a lack of resources, a lack of opportunity. My mother worked hard to make sure that I had everything that I have now. She's taught me everything from work ethic to just being a kind person and being that person for community. My childhood was actually really good, to be honest with you. I went to a great school. I participated in social events. I played soccer. So I really had a really good life. My family was also within the Black Power movement at the time. My great-grandfather started the Free Breakfast Program in collaboration with the Black Panther Party. My mother marched with Cesar Chavez during the farm workers strike. And my grandparents were always about just making sure that Black people, specifically within the Bay Area, had access to resources and access to opportunity. My mother taught me, first and foremost, that even though you're Latino, race and culture are two different things. So I was very well educated on where I come from, who my people are, and I was told never to forget that I am Black first before anything else. That actually has shaped me and my advocacy and my activism here as an adult and what I do now. I was 4. I knew I was different because they were really active in the community. My family are AKAs, etc. They had this plan for me. The plan was that I would get married, I would be successful, I would have children, etc. So I went to etiquette classes, I participated in Jack and Jill, I did cotillion, I did everything. Because they were able to raise me a certain way and sacrifice a lot for me, I kept it to myself. On my 18th birthday, I came out to my mother. She wasn't really happy. Actually, it was really crazy. Growing up in West Oakland, our house was in front of this bus stop. It was the 62 bus stop. So our house had these big red stairs and the bus stop was across the street and there were a lot of people at the bus stop. And I had just sat in the house and said, hey mom, I'm gay. I feel some type of way and I wanted to let you know. My mother flipped out. I was raised as a free child, so I was always taught to be myself. But when it came to like gender and sexuality, that was a no-no. You could be anything else. If you wanted to be a hippie, if you wanted to be a dog or a cat, that was okay. But to be gay or even or trans, that was totally unheard of. So me and my mother, we got into a huge fight. She cussed me out. My mother was a Puerto Rican mother, so we carry a little louder than other people. So all I remember is that I ran outside. She had packed all my clothes up, rolled all my clothes in garbage bags down the stairs in front of that bus stop. So not only did I come out to my mom, I came out to the whole neighborhood. However, the neighborhood didn't give me any crap for it. They were just like, ooh, I'm so sorry. Like they were giving me hugs and they were like, it's gonna be okay. Shortly after that, I was homeless for a little bitty bit. At that time, gentrification wasn't happening. So there were kids like me that were out on the street. That's where I really learned how to respect the community that I'm in. I started going to a place called SMAC, which is the Sexual Minorities Alliance of Alameda County. Roosevelt Mosby actually operated that center. I had found like-minded people that were like me, who identified like me. They took me in and they made sure that I was taken care of. So they would show me the ropes. They really made sure that I had a place to sleep. They made sure that I had food. They made sure that I learned some sort of survival, because growing up in a privileged household, you don't learn survival. Because you're not thinking that you're gonna be out there on the street. You're not thinking that your parents are gonna put you out. You're not thinking that you're going to see other things that you see on the news. So I was hanging out in downtown Oakland. I was couch surfing. I would go to SMAC and everything like that. It was just really crazy. And the experiences that I've lived are forever really in my mind, where I've seen people killed. I've witnessed like robberies. I've witnessed a whole different part of Oakland. My transition was really, really hard. All of my friends were not trans. They were studs, right? Because I was I was straight, and then I had came out and I was a stud, but there was something about being a stud that wasn't realistic for me. I felt like I was living a lie. So, all the partying, the women, all this other stuff, that was cool, but they couldn't understand me on another level, and I felt something totally different. I remember reading an article, and I saw these 3 trans men, Marquise, Balenciaga, Saul, and Andre LeBlanc. And Andre LeBlanc was actually from here. And I saw his transition. I would sit there and I would literally look at transition and look at how he looks and look at how he used to look and really read up on him. And I was really marveled by his courage and what he did. And I looked at it and I said, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. This is who I am. After that, I was stuck. I was, the World Wide Web. We didn't have social media. We had Downlink. And the thing about Downlink was that it was purely like a hookup site. So you can't just go in someone's inbox and be like, hey, I see you have a beard. How did you get a beard? Because it was disrespectful at the time. People didn't want to be open and share things like that. I ended up running into somebody and I asked them, I said, hey, it was in Berkeley. I said, how did you do that? At first they were looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, come on, how did you do that? They were a little upset, but they came back the next week and they told me. They said, oh, I went to this place and I did it this way. So I ended up calling this place called Dimensions, which is a clinic in the Castro. And they told me to come in, and I came in on a Thursday. I remember I was 19, and I did a drop-in, and they told me when we talk about the insurance system, it's crazy because if you have no income and you're from a different place, you have to really figure it out because the insurance doesn't really match. So I had to actually stay in a homeless shelter and get a recommendation from them stating that I was homeless in order to get care. I went in for my first consultation, and it was crazy because I was the only Black person there. So I'm going there and I'm trying to find my true self and I'm trying to match with how I feel, and I'm sitting in a room full of white folks and they're just looking at me crazy like, what the hell is he doing here? And I remember people just kind of staring at me the whole time. I felt so uncomfortable. I had to survive. If I didn't do this, I would be dead because I've been living a lie for so long. So I finally got in there. I finally started hormones and everything else. I knew that I was starting to pass, and the community as a whole, they weren't very accepting of that because, again, I'm the only Black man in the room, and I've been on testosterone for less time than them. And so I started to get a taste in my mouth about what white privilege was, about what racism was, about the true issues within this community when it comes to haves, have-nots, etc., and the differences in this community. Ultimately, my friends were dying. They were literally being killed. A lot of them were being killed. A lot of them were being raped. There was just a lot of stuff going on. So I decided, because I had access, I went back to school. I stayed with my grandparents, and I finished college. A lot of my friends, they were actually, they were HIV positive. So then we get to the other part where childhood friends are coming back and we're hanging out and life is a little bit stable. And then all of a sudden everybody has HIV or everybody is dealing with substance use. I decided that I was going to go become a phlebotomist and then somehow work my way into the HIV prevention field. My first job was at Ward 86 in San Francisco. And it was crazy because I'm seeing my friends, I'm seeing people I grew up with, people who ran the streets with me, etc. I was seeing them being willed into this place. It felt like everywhere you turned, people were dying. And I'm talking about these are Black and brown people. I made it a goal. I was motivated to come back home to Oakland and give back to my community that way. So if San Francisco had all these rich resources and access to things. Even though it was a nightmare, what does Oakland have? So I decided to come back to Oakland. I was fortunate enough to get a job at a place called AIDS Project to the East Bay, and I started working with my specific population. I'm very happy to be a part of something like this. I'm very proud of the people who started this. I hella love Oakland. I want something like this in Oakland because we are dealing with gentrification, right? San Francisco's not really gonna have many black people. It's already happening. Oakland also, right? Because again, we move and shake. We create and people take. That's how it works. So I would like to see something like this for people who are pushed out into valleys, who are pushed out into other parts where there is nothing. People are there, but there's no resources for them. So we have to think about the privileges that we do have here with this, and we have to keep it going because other places around the country are gonna mirror this, and they're going to definitely create something of their own. This is truly historical, and it should be definitely honored as such. I finally decided to show up to my family's places with a full beard, looking a certain type of way, and I told them, hey, you have to accept it or whatever. And they do. The ultimate time I felt affirmed was when I got married in my family's church as a man. Whereas people, the bride and groom, that right there was the icing on the cake. That was my monumental time where I stood at the altar and I cried. I mean, to be in the church where my great-grandfather preached, to be in a church where my mother was married, where my grandmother was married, where my great-aunt was married, where my whole family had dedicated their lives to, and to be on that altar and to go through that and not be judged for it and carry on like a normal marriage, I mean, I can die happy because that's what I wanted, and I got it. When you first transition, they give you that paper and they say, this might happen, you might be bald, this and that. I got some ugly people in my family and I got some good looking people in my family. I think my main thing was like, am I gonna be ugly or am I gonna be good looking? Am I gonna lose my hair because then I'm gonna have to go get a wig because I love hair, like all these things. I was just happy that I was able to see that transformation. And it was a huge transformation because I lived as female up to the age of 18. And I wasn't even really butch like that. I was very feminine. I maybe was like tomboyish, but my hair was long. Everything was happening. And so for me to see something totally different in the mirror, it just makes me proud to see the change that I've gone through. But it also makes me even more proud to see that people notice the change that I've gone through. Whereas when I'm on the street, especially like where I grew up, people don't know who I am. They're like, you have a twin. And I'm like, I do? They go, yeah. She used to live up the block. I said, yeah, I do. Or like, I look like my grandfather, where people will be like, you're Billy's kid. And I'll be like, no, I'm Billy's grandkid. I know he had a grandson. I said, oh yeah, he does. He has a grandson. Things like that really motivate me, and it makes me happy to know that I was able to take advantage of something and to create my own happy ending.